Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the bell for new stories. The research station on Europa, one of Jupiter's moons, was an isolated outpost, its only connection to Earth a long-range communications link that worked intermittently. Dr. Emily Hunt, a leading astrobiologist, had spent years studying the icy surface of the moon, gathering data on its potential for harboring life. Europa had always been a mysterious place, with its thick ice crust and the possibility of a liquid ocean beneath. But what Emily was about to find would change everything she knew about life beyond Earth. It began with a routine scan of the surface, using the advanced ground-penetrating radar developed by Earth's best scientists. The radar revealed something odd, an anomaly deep beneath the ice. It was unlike any natural formation they had encountered before. After weeks of preparation, Emily, along with her team of scientists, had finally organized an expedition to investigate further. The outpost's small rover was equipped with drills designed to break through the thick layers of ice, and they would dig down to uncover what lay hidden. The drill broke through the final layer, and what they discovered was beyond belief. A large chamber, encased in perfectly preserved ice, stretched out before them. It was clear that this was no natural formation. The walls of the chamber were smooth, with strange glyphs etched into the surface that seemed to glow faintly, even under the icy cold. In the center of the chamber, a figure lay frozen in the ice, an alien, undeniably beautiful and haunting in its stillness. The being appeared humanoid, but unlike anything Emily had ever seen. Its skin shimmered with an ethereal quality, a soft iridescence that shifted in the dim light. The hair, long and flowing, seemed to have been crafted from some silken material that sparkled even in the cold darkness of the chamber. Its features were elegant, almost impossibly perfect, with sharp cheekbones, full lips, and eyes that, even frozen, seemed to gaze into the depths of Emily's soul. But what struck her most was its posture. The alien's hand was stretched out, palm facing upward as if offering something. The other hand clutched an object, a small device she could not yet identify, embedded into the ice as though it had been held there for millennia. "What is this?" Emily whispered to herself, her breath fogging up in the cold air as she stood over the frozen figure. There were so many questions. Who was this alien? How had it ended up here? And most importantly, what did this device mean? Was it a weapon? A message? Or something entirely different? The discovery seemed too monumental to comprehend, and Emily felt a shiver run down her spine, not from the cold but from the weight of the moment. She was the first human to lay eyes on this being, and the potential for understanding alien life hung in the air. As she stood there, examining the figure, she couldn't shake the feeling that the alien wasn't just a victim of some cosmic accident. It felt like it was waiting. Waiting for someone to find it, to understand it. And strangely, that person was her. Her heart raced as she carefully approached the frozen figure. The device in the alien's hand was unlike any technology she'd ever seen. It seemed to hum faintly, though the sound was so subtle that Emily wondered if she had imagined it. Her fingers hovered over it, drawn to its sleek, angular design, unsure if touching it would activate something. "Should we remove it?" one of her colleagues, Dr. Jacob Corwin, asked, breaking her reverie. He had been with her on this mission since its inception, and while he was as fascinated as she was, there was a cautiousness in his voice. "If this technology is alien, we don't know what it could do. It could be dangerous." Emily paused, considering his words. "We don't know what it is yet, but we can't just leave it here. It's been waiting for eons. Maybe it holds the answers we've been looking for." Her eyes lingered on the alien, a deep connection forming in her chest. It was as if the being was silently urging her to take the next step. Jacob sighed, but he reluctantly nodded, agreeing to proceed. The team spent the next few hours carefully extracting the alien from its icy prison. They used specialized equipment to melt the surrounding ice without damaging the delicate being inside. Emily, using a thin probe, gently reached out and touched the alien's hand. To her surprise, the moment her fingers made contact, the temperature around them began to rise. The ice surrounding the figure started to crack, and the glowing glyphs on the walls of the chamber flickered to life, bathing the room in a soft, otherworldly light. The alien's hand twitched. Emily gasped, stepping back in shock. "Did you see that?" Jacob was already at her side, his eyes wide with disbelief. "It moved. It's alive?" No one knew how to respond. They watched in stunned silence as the being's hand slowly began to shift, curling inward, as if trying to awaken from an eternal slumber. The chamber's temperature continued to rise, and the ice began to melt away faster than Emily thought possible. The alien's body, once cold and lifeless, seemed to breathe with new life, and a deep hum filled the air as the device in its hand flickered on. "Emily? What have you done?" Jacob muttered, his voice filled with a mix of awe and fear. Emily's mind raced, but one thought persisted above all others. They had just awoken something far beyond their understanding. The potential for both discovery and danger loomed before them, and the answers lay in the frozen alien's hand. What had it been doing before it was frozen? What secrets had it been guarding for eons? And most hauntingly of all, what would it do now that it was free? The adventure was only just beginning. The air inside the chamber was electric with anticipation. Emily's heartbeat quickened, matching the growing hum of energy that pulsed from the alien being. She took a step forward, her eyes locked on the figure whose hand had now fully unfurled, revealing a strange, glowing device that had once been concealed in its palm. The air was thick with questions, but one thought stood out above the rest. What had they just woken up? Jacob moved to stand beside her, his face pale and wide-eyed. His voice when it came was hoarse. "Emily, we need to get out of here. This is too dangerous." But Emily's instincts held her in place. She couldn't walk away, not now, not when the answers to humanity's greatest question were within reach. "We don't know what this is," she murmured, her gaze fixed on the glowing object in the alien's hand. "We have to learn. This could change everything." The device in the alien's hand flickered, and the symbols on the chamber walls shone brighter. The alien's eyes, still closed beneath the crystalline ice, were now glowing faintly as well. Emily could sense the energy building in the air, a charged presence that seemed to saturate the entire room. It was as though the being was awakening slowly, struggling against the confines of the ice, and in that struggle, it was drawing power from something far beyond their understanding. "Emily, please," Jacob urged, pulling at her arm gently. "If we don't leave now, I don't think we'll make it out of here." But before she could respond, something extraordinary happened. The alien's eyes snapped open, glowing with an intense, otherworldly light. The temperature in the chamber spiked, the melting ice quickly evaporating into steam as if the very presence of the being was shifting the laws of nature around it. Emily stepped back, her breath hitching in her throat. It was as though she were in the presence of a force that transcended mere biology or technology. This was not just a life form, it was something far greater. The alien's gaze swept over them, locking onto Emily with an intensity that made her skin prickle. It wasn't just seeing her, it was reading her as though it could see into her very soul. The hum from the device in its hand intensified, and with a fluid motion, the alien slowly raised it, aiming it toward Emily. Her breath caught in her chest. For a moment she thought it might be a weapon, some kind of advanced alien technology designed for destruction. But the expression on the alien's face was not one of hostility, there was no malice in its eyes, only a deep, ancient sorrow. The device emitted a pulse of energy and suddenly, Emily was flooded with visions. Images of stars, planets, and strange, incomprehensible landscapes. Her mind was assaulted with data, swirling patterns of light and color, interwoven with images of civilizations, some thriving and others lying in ruins. She saw glimpses of the alien's past, worlds beyond her imagination, technology that could bend time and space and species, some humanoid, others entirely alien, that had come and gone over the eons. In an instant she understood. This being was not just an alien, it was a witness to the cosmos itself, a guardian of ancient knowledge. The device was not a weapon but a key to something far more significant than they could grasp. "Emily," Jacob shouted, snapping her out of the trance. His voice was frantic, but there was a tremor in it now as if he too had felt the weight of the knowledge that had flooded her mind. "What's happening to you?" The images faded, leaving Emily breathless and disoriented. The chamber was silent now, the hum of the device fading into nothingness. The alien had lowered its hand, the light in its eyes dimming. It was still as if exhausted by the energy it had just released. I don't know," Emily whispered, her mind racing to process what she had seen. It was too much, too overwhelming to put into words. "It showed me everything. The histories of entire civilizations. Technology beyond anything we've ever imagined. It's a witness to all of it." Jacob's face was a mixture of awe and confusion. "A witness? What do you mean? Are you saying this thing has seen entire galaxies die?" Emily nodded slowly. "Yes. It has witnessed the rise and fall of countless species. It has knowledge that could change everything about how we understand life, the universe, even time itself." The alien shifted then, its body moving with an elegance that defied the frozen state it had been trapped in for so long. It stood up, its long, flowing hair shifting like liquid under its weightless motion. It didn't speak, but its presence seemed to fill the room, radiating with a quiet, ancient power. Without warning, it extended its other hand toward Emily, a silent invitation. She hesitated, but something in her heart told her to step forward. Tentatively, she took a step, then another, until she was standing directly in front of the alien. The being's eyes locked with hers once more, and this time she didn't resist the pull of its gaze. She reached out, placing her hand in its, and the moment their skin made contact, a shock of energy coursed through her. Her vision blurred, and for a moment she was no longer in the chamber on Europa. She was standing on a vast, alien world, looking out over a landscape that was unlike anything she had ever seen. Towering spires rose from the ground, made of materials that shimmered like liquid metal. The sky above was a swirling mass of vibrant colors and strange creatures. Some humanoid, others bizarre and unrecognizable, moved about in the distance. The alien's voice, soft and melodic, filled her mind, speaking in a language she couldn't understand, but somehow did understand. The cycle is ending. You must remember. Before she could respond, the vision shattered and she was back in the chamber on Europa. The alien was still standing in front of her, its eyes now dimming, the faintest hint of a smile tugging at its lips. But there was a sadness in its expression, as if it knew something Emily didn't. The cycle is ending, she murmured, her voice barely a whisper. What does that mean? The alien did not respond with words, but the message was clear. You are a part of something much bigger. The time has come for you to know the truth. As Emily stood there, her mind reeling from the encounter, she realized that the journey she had embarked on, this discovery, was just the beginning. There was more at stake than just understanding an alien race. There was something happening, something far greater than anything humanity had ever faced. And Emily was at the center of it. The silence in the chamber was almost oppressive as Emily stood there, still reeling from the vision. The alien before her, though silent, seemed to be waiting for something, waiting for her to process, to understand. But Emily wasn't sure what she had just witnessed. Her mind scrambled to piece together the fragments of the vision, the strange words that echoed in her mind. The cycle is ending. You must remember. Jacob was still beside her, his hand gently gripping her shoulder as if to steady her. His voice broke through the fog in her mind. Emily, you're scaring me. What did it do to you? Emily blinked, trying to shake the disorienting haze that clung to her thoughts. She turned to Jacob, meeting his worried gaze, but her voice came out barely above a whisper. It showed me something. A world, no, many worlds. Civilizations, histories, events, all tied together. I think it's trying to tell us something. Something important. Jacob's face was pale, his brows furrowed in confusion. What does it mean, though? How do we know what to do with this? Emily took a deep breath, trying to focus, to ground herself in the present. The alien stood before them, still, its eyes now dimming to an almost imperceptible glow. But Emily could feel its gaze on her, as though it were still connected to her in some intangible way. She felt the pull, the weight of its silent communication, urging her to act. But what? What did it want from her? What was the truth? She turned back to the alien, her voice stronger this time. What is this cycle you spoke of? What do you mean by ending? The alien's eyes flickered for a moment, and Emily felt an odd sensation ripple through her, as though the being was considering her question before deciding to respond. The device in its hand, now resting loosely at its side, pulsed gently. A soft hum emanated from it, and once again, Emily was flooded with visions. This time, there was no overwhelming barrage of images. This was a singular, focused moment. A message. She saw a galaxy far older than the one they inhabited, its stars burning brightly. But as the image expanded, the stars began to fade, one by one. Systems fell silent. Planets crumbled. The cycle, she realized, was the cycle of life, of civilizations rising and falling, of the stars themselves flickering out as time wore on. In the distance she saw the alien race, beings like the one in front of her, but with faces of sorrow and eyes full of ancient wisdom. They had once been a great empire, spanning the reaches of the galaxy, but their time had come to an end. The cycle was inevitable, but it was also something they had tried to stop. This alien was not merely a survivor of that lost civilization. It was a messenger, a keeper of their legacy. Emily understood, but the weight of it was almost too much to bear. The alien's voice, though silent, filled her mind once more, its words clear despite the alien language. The cycle, you are the next. The guardian of the knowledge. The end of this cycle and the beginning of the next. Emily staggered back, her legs nearly giving way beneath her. What do you mean? I'm the next? her voice cracked with disbelief. "I'm just a scientist. I don't have the answers you're looking for." The alien's gaze softened, and Emily felt a strange sense of calm wash over her. Its presence was no longer intimidating or alien, it was as if she was seeing it for what it truly was. A witness, a keeper, a guide. The alien didn't need her to have all the answers. It needed her to understand that the cycle was part of something much greater than anyone on Earth had ever realized. The universe was not a static, unchanging place. It was in constant motion, constantly evolving, and every civilization, every species, was part of that greater cycle. Emily's mind reeled as the implications began to sink in. The fate of entire galaxies, civilizations, species, all had been part of this cycle, and now humanity had unknowingly become part of it. The alien race, the beings that had once ruled vast stretches of space, had failed to stop the end of their cycle. And now it was humanity's turn to either continue or face the same fate. "Why me?" Emily whispered again. "Why now?" The alien didn't answer directly. Instead, it lifted its hand once more, and this time, it placed the device gently into Emily's hands. The moment her fingers closed around it, a surge of energy shot through her once more. This time the sensation was different. It wasn't overwhelming, it was precise, focused. She felt the weight of the universe itself pressing against her shoulders, but in that moment she understood. The device was a key. Not just to unlock knowledge, but to unlock something within herself. Something deep within the human race. The alien's silent communication continued. "You are the one who will lead. The one who will choose. The key must be used wisely. The next cycle is in your hands." Emily felt the weight of the responsibility settling on her. The next cycle? What was it asking of her? Was she supposed to stop the collapse of civilization? Prevent humanity from repeating the mistakes of the past? But how could she? She was just one person. How could she possibly hold the fate of the entire galaxy in her hands? "I don't know what to do," Emily said aloud, her voice cracking under the pressure. "I'm just one person." But as soon as the words left her lips, she felt something within her stir, a quiet voice no louder than a whisper, but it felt like her own. "You are not alone." She looked up at the alien, her eyes wide. The being's gaze softened once more, and for a brief moment she saw a flash of understanding in its eyes. No. It had always known that she would face this burden. And now it was passing the torch to her. Jacob stepped forward, his voice trembling. "Emily? What's happening? What's going on?" Emily turned to him, the weight of the device in her hand still heavy, but with newfound purpose. "The alien race, they've been watching over the cycles for eons. They've seen the end of countless civilizations. And now the cycle is coming to us. The next cycle." She hesitated, her thoughts rushing forward. "We have to be ready. Humanity has to be ready. The end of this cycle doesn't have to mean our end, Jacob. We have a choice." But as she said the words, something in the air shifted. A deep rumbling echoed through the chamber, and the walls began to glow brighter, the glyphs pulsing with an ominous rhythm. "What is that?" Jacob asked, panic creeping into his voice. The alien's eyes grew dark, and the device in Emily's hands hummed louder. It wasn't just a message, it was a warning. The cycle was already beginning to move, and they were running out of time. The rumbling grew louder, vibrating through the floor beneath their feet. Emily's pulse quickened as the chamber seemed to pulse with an almost tangible energy. The glyphs on the walls shone brighter, and the air itself seemed to shimmer with an electric charge. Something was happening, something was unfolding. She could feel it deep within her bones, and the device in her hand seemed to resonate with the growing intensity. Jacob stepped back, his face pale with fear. "Emily, we need to get out of here. Now. This isn't safe." But Emily couldn't tear her eyes away from the alien. The being was still standing before her, motionless, but its expression was one of quiet urgency. The dim glow in its eyes seemed to intensify as the rumbling reverberated through the chamber. It was as though the alien had known this moment was coming, the end of its cycle, the moment of humanity's reckoning. "No," Emily said, her voice firm despite the fear creeping into her chest. "We can't leave. The cycle has already started. We need to understand what's happening." Jacob's eyes were wide with disbelief, but there was something in Emily's gaze, something determined, that made him hesitate. He opened his mouth to argue, but before he could speak, the alien moved. It took a single step forward, its gaze never leaving Emily. There was an almost imperceptible shift in its posture, as though it were preparing to impart its final message. Then with a soft hum the alien raised both hands. The device in Emily's grasp pulsed again, and suddenly the chamber was filled with a blinding light. Emily gasped, shielding her eyes with her free hand, but the light didn't hurt. It was warm, almost comforting, as if it were filling the room with some ancient power. The glyphs on the walls spun faster, becoming a blur of movement and color. And then, just as quickly as it had started, the light dimmed, leaving behind an eerie silence. Emily blinked, trying to adjust to the change, and when her vision cleared, the alien was gone. "What happened?" Jacob asked, his voice shaking as he looked around the chamber, as if expecting the alien to reappear. "Where did it go?" But Emily didn't have an answer. Her thoughts were racing, the images, the visions, the weight of the responsibility pressing against her mind. She felt disoriented, as though she had just awoken from a dream. The device in her hand hummed softly, its presence both comforting and unsettling at the same time. "It's not gone," Emily said softly, looking around the chamber. "The alien, it's still here. It's part of this place. It's been waiting for us to find it." Jacob frowned, but before he could speak, a new sound filled the air, a deep, rumbling noise not from the chamber but from outside. The ground trembled beneath them, and Emily's heart skipped a beat as she realized what was happening. "They're coming," she whispered, her voice filled with dread. "The end of the cycle. It's not just a metaphor. It's happening now." The rumbling grew louder, and the walls of the chamber began to shake. Emily clutched the device tighter, the alien's final words echoing in her mind. "The cycle. You are the next. The guardian of the knowledge. The end of this cycle and the beginning of the next." It was real. The cycle was ending. And whatever came next was beyond anything they had prepared for. "We need to get back to the surface," Jacob said, his voice urgent. "We need to warn the others, tell them what's happening. If this place is going to collapse." "No," Emily shook her head, her mind made up. "We can't warn them. Not yet." Jacob stared at her, stunned. "What are you talking about? We can't just sit here and wait for—" "Listen," Emily interrupted, her voice steady despite the chaos unfolding around them. "The alien race, they've seen this before. The end of their cycle. They were the guardians of this knowledge and they passed it to me. To us. We're the ones who are supposed to make the choice, Jacob. We're the ones who decide what happens next." Jacob opened his mouth to protest, but Emily held up her hand, stopping him. She didn't have time to explain everything. The visions, the weight of the alien's message, it was all crashing down on her, and she knew she had to act. The fate of humanity was on her shoulders, and the choice wasn't going to be easy. "But I don't know what to do," she admitted quietly, the fear creeping back into her voice. "I don't know what the right choice is." The ground trembled again, more violently this time, and the walls of the chamber cracked, sending shards of ice cascading to the floor. Emily's breath caught in her throat as the chamber seemed to be collapsing around them. "We don't have time to figure it out," Jacob shouted, pulling at her arm. "We need to leave now or we'll die in here." But Emily didn't move. Her eyes were fixed on the device, her mind racing as she tried to make sense of everything she had seen. The visions. The messages. The alien's words. The end of this cycle and the beginning of the next. The cycle was not just the end of a civilization. It was the end of an era. And humanity was now standing at the threshold of something new. But it wasn't just about survival. It was about evolution. The alien race had tried to stop the end of their cycle, but they had failed. They had passed the mantle to humanity. And now, Emily had to decide. Would they try to save what was left of the old world, or would they embrace the new cycle? Would they evolve, or would they cling to the past? The rumbling grew louder, and Emily felt her chest tighten as the weight of the decision pressed down on her. But then she remembered something. Something the alien had shown her in that brief moment of vision. The galaxy. The civilizations. The rise and fall of empires. It was a constant, a never-ending cycle of death and rebirth. The old worlds had fallen, but new ones had risen in their place. Humanity had a choice, to become the next cycle or to perish with the past. "Emily," Jacob urged, shaking her gently. "We have to go." And for the first time, Emily made her choice. With a deep breath, she turned toward Jacob, her resolve solidifying. "No," she said. "We don't leave. Not yet. The cycle has to end. But I won't let humanity repeat the mistakes of the past. We're going to face this and we're going to choose the future." The ground trembled again, but Emily stood firm. The future was uncertain, but now for the first time she knew exactly what had to be done. The chamber continued to shake violently, ice cracking and shattering under the strain of whatever was happening beyond the walls. Emily gripped the alien device tightly, feeling its pulsating hum beneath her skin. It was as though the device was attuned to the very heartbeat of the universe itself, its energy both comforting and terrifying. She could sense that it was responding to the growing intensity in the chamber, the collapse of the old cycle and the imminent birth of a new one. "Emily, we can't stay here," Jacob shouted again, his voice frantic, but she barely heard him over the growing roar of the collapsing structure. The sound was deafening now, the walls crumbling as if they were being consumed by an unstoppable force. The light from the device flickered as if it were struggling to hold on to the energy it contained. Emily turned her gaze back to the alien's empty place. It wasn't just gone, it had left, or perhaps more accurately, it had become part of the cycle. The alien, in its final moments, had passed its burden on to her, and now it was no longer just an ancient species' last hope. It was a part of everything, connected to the very fabric of the universe itself. "Jacob, listen to me." Emily's voice cut through the chaos, her eyes locking onto his. "The end is coming. We're standing at the crossroads right here, right now. This cycle, is ending. We can't stop that. But what we do next is our choice. We can either accept the destruction of everything we know and try to rebuild, or we can choose to break free from the cycle. It's not just about survival, Jacob. It's about evolution." Jacob looked at her, eyes wide and filled with uncertainty. His fear was palpable. "Evolution? What are you talking about? How can you know what's coming? We don't have the time to figure this out." But Emily's resolve only hardened. "This isn't just about us anymore. It's about humanity's future. And we have to choose to face the unknown. We can't hold on to the past if we want to have a future. The alien race, the one that created this, they couldn't stop the cycle. But we can. We can become something new." Her words hung in the air, and for a moment she wondered if they were enough. If Jacob would understand the weight of what she was saying. The rumbling grew louder, now joined by a series of booming crashes from deeper within the ice, a sign that the collapse was no longer limited to the chamber but was spreading throughout the entire complex. The alien technology, the walls of ice, everything around them was being torn apart by forces Emily couldn't comprehend, yet somehow she knew that this was the birth of a new age, not the end of their world. She reached out and grabbed Jacob's arm, pulling him toward the central column of the chamber. The device hummed louder now, resonating with the chaos as if feeding off the disintegration around them. "We have to harness this energy, Jacob," Emily said urgently. "If we don't, everything will be destroyed." Jacob's face was still filled with doubt, but he followed her instinctively. "How are we supposed to do that?" he asked, desperation in his voice. Emily didn't have all the answers, but she knew one thing for certain. The device was their key. The alien had shown her that. It had shown her how this energy, this collapse, was not just an apocalypse, it was a transformation. The device held the power to either end the cycle for good or to allow humanity to fall into the same patterns that had doomed the alien race before them. "You have to trust me," Emily said, her voice steady despite the chaos. "The alien's message, its legacy, it's not about fighting this. It's about using the energy of the collapse to fuel something new. We have to tap into it or it will consume us all." Jacob nodded slowly, his expression a mixture of fear and reluctant trust. Together they moved to the center of the chamber, where the walls were falling apart around them. The ice had now been completely shattered, and the whole structure seemed to be coming undone, as though the very foundation of the ancient complex was being undone by the forces unleashed within. Emily held the device in both hands, the humming growing louder, the pulse of its energy filling the air around them. She closed her eyes for a moment, focusing on the sensations flooding her mind, the faint whispers of the alien race, the knowledge they had passed down to her. She could feel the energy surging through the chamber, through the walls, through her very body. The collapse wasn't just destruction, it was a release, a shedding of the old skin. "We are on the precipice," Emily realized, her thoughts crystal clear now. "This is the moment of transformation. This is where the cycle ends but something new begins." She opened her eyes and looked at Jacob. "We have to channel this energy into the device," she said firmly. "Only then will we have control over what happens next." Jacob took a deep breath, his eyes scanning the crumbling chamber around them. "I don't understand everything that's happening, but I'll help you. We're in this together." With that, they both focused on the device in Emily's hands. She could feel the power building in the room, a raw force of nature that was pulling at the very fabric of space. The walls continued to shake, but now it felt as though the device was resonating with the energy, pulling it in, stabilizing the chaos. She could sense the alien's presence not in a physical form but as a concept, a deep understanding that this was a moment of reckoning, not just for them but for the entire universe. The device pulsed in Emily's hands and suddenly, a beam of light shot upward, piercing the ceiling of the chamber. It was as though the very sky had cracked open, revealing something beyond, a new dimension, a new realm of existence. "This is it," Emily whispered. "The next cycle. It's starting." And then, as if in response to her words, the energy around them exploded into a blinding flash of light. Emily felt her body lifted from the ground, her skin tingling as the energy surged through her, through the device, through the very air. She was no longer just standing in the collapsing chamber, she was connected to everything. To the galaxy. To the universe. She was part of something much larger, something eternal. The light enveloped them both, and in that moment the world seemed to dissolve. The collapsing structure, the chaos of the collapsing cycle, it all faded away into nothingness. Emily felt a surge of understanding flood her mind. The alien race had failed to stop the collapse because they had clung to their past. They had refused to evolve, to break free from the cycle. But humanity was different. They had the power to choose, to break the cycle, to usher in a new era of possibility. As the light subsided and the chamber dissolved into nothingness, Emily and Jacob stood in a new realm, an endless, infinite expanse of stars and energy. The future was before them. The next cycle had begun and they were its architects. Emily's breath caught in her throat as the light finally faded. What had once been a crumbling, frozen chamber now seemed like a distant memory. The icy walls, the collapsing structure, everything was gone, replaced by an endless expanse of stars that stretched out beyond the horizon, an infinite sea of cosmic energy. Her feet touched solid ground, or what seemed like solid ground, though it was hard to tell where the space around them began and ended. It felt like the very fabric of the universe was suspended around them, like a blank canvas awaiting the first stroke of creation. Jacob stood beside her, his eyes wide with awe. He was speechless, clearly overwhelmed by the magnitude of their surroundings. The stars twinkled in the distance, but there was something else, an ethereal glow that pulsed from the very air itself. It was the energy they had unleashed, the force that had once destroyed the alien civilization, now transformed into something new. The light that had enveloped them moments ago had dispersed, but the aftereffects remained, a soft, comforting hum that seemed to resonate with their bodies. "Emily, what is this?" Jacob's voice trembled with awe. Emily looked around, taking it all in, and for a moment she was speechless. She didn't have all the answers. She couldn't possibly understand everything in this new realm they had entered, but she knew one thing. They had crossed a threshold, one that had been set in motion long before they ever arrived. "This is where the cycle ends," Emily said, her voice steady but filled with wonder. "It's not just a physical place, Jacob. This is a space beyond the boundaries of time, a dimension that exists between the cycles. This is where all cycles converge, the end of one, the beginning of another." Jacob turned to face her, still reeling from the sheer vastness of the place. "But how? How do we know all of this?" "I don't fully understand it either," Emily admitted, her fingers tightening around the alien device in her hands. "But the alien, the race we encountered, they were guardians of this space. Their mission wasn't just about survival. It was about understanding how the cycles work, how the universe constantly renews itself. They had seen civilizations rise and fall countless times, and they failed to stop their own cycle from ending. But they passed the burden on to us. So, we're supposed to guide this?" Jacob asked, still trying to process everything. "We're supposed to choose what happens next?" Emily nodded, her heart pounding in her chest. She could feel the weight of their responsibility pressing down on her again. This wasn't just a physical transformation. This was a transformation of consciousness, of existence itself. They were standing at the center of the universe's grand design, at the point where all paths converged. "We can't stop the cycles. They're inevitable," Emily said, her voice taking on a deeper tone. "But we can choose how to proceed. Humanity doesn't have to repeat the same mistakes the alien race made. We have the chance to shape the future, not just for ourselves but for all who will come after us." The stars around them flickered, almost as if responding to her words. In the distance, Emily could see countless points of light, clusters of stars that seemed to be shifting, realigning. There was something moving beneath the surface of this realm, a force, a current, like an undercurrent in the ocean of existence. Jacob took a step forward, his face thoughtful. "If we're here to guide this, then what's next? What do we do now?" Emily took a deep breath. The choice before them was monumental. They could either seek to maintain the status quo, preserving the old ways, or they could risk everything and forge a new path, one that broke free from the endless cycle of rise and fall, of birth and decay. The alien race had failed to evolve. They had clung to the past until it consumed them. Now it was humanity's turn to choose whether they would continue down the same path or take a leap into the unknown. The device in Emily's hands pulsed once again, its energy resonating with the stars around them. It was calling her, no, guiding her. The alien's legacy, its knowledge, was embedded within the device, but it was also in her mind, in her heart. She had been chosen for this moment, whether she had been ready for it or not. What if we don't make the right choice? Jacob asked, his voice heavy with doubt. What if we fail like the aliens did? Emily turned to him, her gaze unwavering. We have no way of knowing what the right choice is, Jacob. There is no certainty. But that's what makes it our choice. We have the power to make this new cycle ours. We don't have to let it destroy us, and we don't have to let it repeat what came before. A soft hum filled the air, growing louder as the light from the device intensified. The stars around them seemed to shift, flickering in sync with the device's pulse. The space around them began to change, warping and distorting, as though the very fabric of reality was being shaped by their decisions. This wasn't just a place of observation, it was a place of creation. They could shape this reality, bend it to their will. Suddenly, a new presence made itself known. Emily felt it before she saw it, an overwhelming force of ancient wisdom and energy, something beyond the physical realm, beyond time itself. She turned, her heart racing as a new figure materialized before them. It was not the alien they had encountered in the chamber. This being was different. Its form was less tangible, more like a projection of pure energy. The figure was vast, composed of shifting starlight and ethereal tendrils of light. It seemed both familiar and alien, like the collective consciousness of the many cycles that had come before them. I am the first, the figure said, its voice resonating deep within Emily's mind. I am the culmination of all that has come before. You stand at the threshold of a new age, a new cycle. But you must choose how to proceed. Emily's breath caught in her throat as she realized what this being was. It wasn't just a single entity, it was the essence of the cycle itself. The first had seen the rise and fall of countless civilizations, had witnessed the failures and triumphs of countless species. It had been there at the beginning and it would be there at the end. You are the architects of the next cycle, the first continued. What you do here will shape the universe for eons to come. Will you break free from the cycle, or will you repeat the mistakes of those who came before you? Emily's mind raced as the weight of the decision before them became even clearer. The fate of the universe rested in her hands, and in Jacob's. She felt the full enormity of the responsibility. The choice wasn't just about survival. It was about change. We can't stay trapped in the past, Emily said, her voice resolute. We can't continue the cycle of rise and fall. It's time to break free. The first form shimmered with approval. Then the path is set. The new cycle begins. With those words, the stars around them seemed to pulse brighter, and the very fabric of space seemed to bend. The energy around them surged, filling them both with a sense of purpose and power. The new cycle was beginning, and humanity would be the architects of its fate. The stars around them seemed to pulse with a new rhythm, a frequency that vibrated through Emily's bones. She stood at the precipice of a decision that would shape the future of humanity, but she no longer felt the weight of uncertainty. The first, the vast being of energy that had appeared before them, had spoken the final truth. This was their choice. Humanity's path was not predetermined. They could now reshape reality itself, forging a new cycle, a new beginning. Jacob stood beside her, his expression now one of clarity and awe. He had seen the destruction, the collapse, the overwhelming force of the energy that had begun to tear the old world apart. But now, in the vast expanse of starlight, there was hope. Hope for something greater than survival. Hope for a future born of change. The first form shimmered once more, the energy coalescing and expanding as it reached out to them, like a force that could not be contained. The choice is yours, Emily. Yours and Jacob's. Will you preserve the past and repeat the mistakes of those who came before you, or will you embrace the unknown and guide humanity into a new era? Emily's pulse quickened, the enormity of the decision settling over her like a storm. Her hand tightened around the alien device, the only connection she had to the knowledge, to the energy that would fuel their decision. She could feel its hum growing stronger, its power vibrating through her very soul. It was as though the entire universe was waiting for her response, for her to choose. She turned to Jacob, searching his eyes for the same certainty that she was beginning to feel. What do you think? She asked softly. Jacob hesitated for a moment, his gaze distant as he took in the vastness of the cosmic expanse around them. Then, slowly, his eyes met hers and she saw something in them that hadn't been there before, a quiet resolve, a shared understanding. He had come to the same conclusion. The past was behind them. The future was ahead. I think, Jacob said, his voice steady, that the only way forward is to embrace change. To evolve. We can't keep clinging to what we know, not if we want to become something greater. Something more than just the survivors of a dying cycle. Emily nodded, her heart swelling with the weight of the moment. She knew deep in her soul that Jacob was right. The collapse of the alien civilization had been inevitable because they had refused to change. They had failed to evolve, to break free from the cycle that had bound them to the past. But humanity had something different. Humanity had choice. We have to take the leap, Emily said, her voice firm. We have to trust in the unknown. At her words, the first energy seemed to intensify, the air crackling with the raw power of the universe itself. The stars shimmered brighter and the light from the device grew blinding. The energy swirling around them expanded, becoming a force that enveloped the entire realm, filling every corner of existence with possibility. The first voice resonated deep within their minds, reverberating through their very beings. Then the cycle ends, it said, its tone filled with ancient wisdom. The past will no longer bind you. You are the architects of the future now. You will guide humanity into a new age, a dawn that is yet unseen. And just like that, the energy began to shift. It was as though the universe itself was bending, adjusting to their will. The very fabric of reality seemed to warp and twist, creating new paths, new possibilities. Emily could feel the threads of fate weaving themselves into a new pattern, a pattern of evolution, of growth, of transformation. The stars above them seemed to expand, their light growing brighter and more vibrant. The vastness of the cosmos unfolded before their eyes, not as an unyielding void, but as a canvas waiting for creation. For the first time, Emily felt like she wasn't just a passive observer in the universe, she was a creator, a shaper of destinies. I can feel it, Jacob whispered, awe in his voice. It's happening. We're changing everything. Emily nodded, her heart pounding in her chest as the energy surged around them. It's not just about us, she said, her voice carrying the weight of their shared understanding. It's about everyone. About humanity. About the future. The stars began to form patterns, new constellations emerging in the vast expanse. As Emily looked up, she saw them taking shape, converging into something new, a map of the future, an outline of the path humanity would take. These were not the old constellations, the ones that had guided explorers of the past. These were new patterns, new possibilities, drawn by the hands of those who had chosen to embrace the unknown. The first form shimmered, its energy rippling with approval. The new dawn begins, it said. You have chosen the path of evolution. The cycle ends here and the new cycle begins with you. And with those words, Emily felt the connection between herself, Jacob, and the universe deepening. The vastness around them became less intimidating and more familiar, as though the very energy of the cosmos was aligned with their will. They were no longer just two individuals standing on the edge of the unknown, they were part of something larger, something infinite. The device in Emily's hands flared with light, its power surging through her, filling every part of her being. The energy that had once been an alien force, distant and unknowable, was now a part of her, a part of humanity. They had become the stewards of this new cycle, the architects of a new age. As the light from the device expanded outward, Emily felt the boundaries of her own existence begin to blur. She could see not just the present but the future, countless possibilities unfolding before her. She could see humanity's path stretching out across the stars, not as passive observers of fate, but as active participants in their own destiny. We're not alone, Jacob said softly, his voice filled with wonder. We never were. No, Emily replied, her voice full of conviction. We've always been a part of something much bigger. And now we're finally ready to take our place in it. The stars around them seemed to resonate with the truth of her words. They were no longer just distant points of light. They were the beacons of possibility, the lights of hope that would guide humanity forward. The cycle had ended, but the new cycle was just beginning. It was a cycle that they would shape. A cycle of change, of evolution, and of boundless potential. And as the energy of the cosmos swirled around them, Emily and Jacob knew that their journey had only just begun. The future was theirs to create, and they would guide humanity into a new era, an era of limitless possibility. The new dawn had arrived. The energy around them was palpable, an electric hum that vibrated in the air, stretching outward in every direction. It was as though the very fabric of reality had opened before them, and Emily could feel herself slipping into a new state of being. The vast expanse that had surrounded them moments ago had grown even more expansive, more intimate in its scope. It was as if the universe itself was unfolding like a delicate flower, every petal a new possibility, every thread a path waiting to be explored. Jacob stood beside her, his presence grounding her, and for a moment she closed her eyes, letting the raw power of the universe flow through her. She could hear the faint whispers of ancient beings, of alien civilizations, all lost to time, but their voices were not mournful. No, they were hopeful. They had seen the cycle end and knew that new life would rise from the ashes. "Do you feel it?" Jacob asked, his voice quiet but filled with awe. Emily nodded, her heart pounding with the realization of what they had just done. They had shifted the trajectory of humanity. They had become the next great force in the universe's ongoing story. And with that choice came both responsibility and unimaginable freedom. No longer were they at the mercy of a never-ending cycle of destruction and rebirth. They were free to create, to shape, to forge their own destiny. The stars around them seemed to pulse in response to her thoughts, as though they were alive, recognizing the choice she and Jacob had made. Emily's fingers gently brushed the surface of the alien device still clasped in her hands, and for a brief moment she felt the presence of the alien race that had passed the torch to them. They had failed to break free from the cycle, but humanity had succeeded. They had evolved. "What happens now?" Jacob asked, his voice filled with uncertainty and wonder. Emily looked at him, her expression softening. She knew that the future was not set in stone. There was no blueprint to follow, no map that would tell them exactly what to do next. The path was theirs to create, and that uncertainty was both exhilarating and terrifying. They were standing on the cusp of a new era, and the weight of that knowledge pressed down on her shoulders. But she was not afraid. She felt a sense of purpose that had never existed before. They were not alone in this. The universe itself had opened up to them. "We guide the next cycle," Emily said softly, her voice filled with quiet confidence. "We help humanity break free from the shackles of the past. We use the knowledge we've gained, the power we've been given, to lead others into this new age." The first had spoken of the dawn of a new era, and it was clear that the universe had been waiting for this moment, for humanity's moment to rise. There was a hum in the air, like the universe was singing, celebrating their choice. The space around them began to ripple, as though the cosmos itself were in motion, adapting to the new course they had set. Stars shifted positions, planets realigned, and the very laws of physics seemed to bend in response to their will. "We're more than just survivors," Emily continued, her voice now growing stronger. "We are creators. We've always had that potential. Now we have the opportunity to make something better. To evolve." Jacob's eyes shone with a quiet understanding, a look that mirrored her own. He reached out, taking her hand, and together they stood in the heart of the universe, the vastness stretching out before them. It was as if they were standing at the very center of creation, at the place where all things began and where all things would eventually end. They were no longer just small, fragile humans in an infinite cosmos. They were part of the cosmos, intricately woven into its fabric, bound by the choices they made. "There's no going back now, is there?" Jacob asked, his voice steady but tinged with both awe and a hint of trepidation. Emily shook her head, a soft smile tugging at her lips. "No. But that's what makes this so beautiful. We've been given the opportunity to define what comes next. To shape the future not just for ourselves, but for every living being in the universe. The power to choose, it's terrifying but it's also freeing." As she spoke, the device in her hands began to glow with increasing intensity. It pulsed like a heartbeat, its energy resonating with the very rhythm of existence. The light emanating from it spread outward, reaching into the corners of the vast cosmic expanse. The energy swirled around them like a living thing, and Emily knew deep down that it was the energy of potential. It was the energy of creation. Suddenly, the space around them began to take shape, not in physical form but in a more abstract way. Emily felt herself connected to every thread of existence, every pattern of the universe. The stars, the galaxies, the very fabric of reality, they were all woven together by invisible forces, and now those forces were under their command. Together, she and Jacob were the architects of this new age. "This is what we've been chosen for," Emily whispered. "This is our destiny." But even as she spoke, Emily knew that their journey had only just begun. The choices they made today would shape not only humanity's future but the future of every species that would follow. The universe was vast and its possibilities were endless. They were no longer just participants in a cycle, they were its creators. The stars continued to pulse and shimmer around them, reflecting their newfound power. The first had given them the tools to shape the future, but it was up to them to decide what that future would look like. Would humanity choose peace, prosperity, and cooperation? Or would they be swept up in the same destructive cycles that had plagued every civilization before them? The question lingered in the air, unspoken, but it was clear that the path they chose would not be easy. The universe was full of challenges, but it was also full of potential. Jacob squeezed her hand, his voice firm. We'll guide them. Together. We'll show humanity what it means to evolve. Emily met his gaze, her heart swelling with determination. She could see it now, not just the future of humanity but the future of all life in the universe. They would break the cycle. They would be the catalyst for change. And with that, the universe seemed to breathe as if it too were preparing for the new dawn. Emily and Jacob stood together at the very center of the cosmos, ready to lead humanity into a new era of existence. The stars above them glittered with possibility, and in that moment, Emily realized that they were not alone. The universe was alive, waiting for them to take the next step. The cycle had ended, but the new journey was just beginning. The end. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more exciting HFY stories. Your support means the world to us. And make sure to tap the bell icon so you never miss an update. Stay tuned for our next adventure, and until then, keep exploring the stars. See you in the next video.